Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. But don't get too comfortable because today we're going behind the curtains, literally into the world of flight attendants. If you thought their job was all about handing out peanuts and asking chicken or pasta, then buckle up because the truth is much stranger, much scarier, and honestly, way funnier than you'd imagine. In this video, we're uncovering airline secrets that flight attendants never tell passengers. Some are about safety, some are about comfort, and some will make you think twice the next time you order a cup of airplane coffee. Stick around until the end, because the last secret might actually change how you travel forever. This is Elite Trailblazer, travel tips that actually work. Secret 1. The real job of a flight attendant. Most passengers see flight attendants as smiling service staff. They pour drinks, hand out snacks, and remind you, politely, to buckle your seatbelt. But here's the first big secret. Serving you is actually the smallest part of their job. A flight attendant's real role is safety. Every single person who earns those wings has gone through intensive emergency training that most passengers don't realize. We're talking firefighting, first aid, de-escalation techniques, emergency evacuations, and even water landings. The glamour image of a flight attendant walking confidently through an airport hides the reality of 6 to 8 weeks of grueling training, often with high washout rates. Sources like the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, confirmed that flight attendants are primarily safety professionals, FAA 2023. Airlines emphasize that they are first responders in the sky, trained to deal with everything from heart attacks to hijackings. One insider story published in The Independent detailed how attendants practice sliding down emergency evacuation chutes repeatedly, sometimes in full gear, and simulate rescuing dummies from smoke-filled cabins. Others describe fire training using real flames. Yes, they're taught how to grab an extinguisher and put out a fire mid-flight. That smiling greeting at the door. It's not just hospitality, it's a safety assessment. As you step onto the aircraft, attendants are scanning each passenger for signs of intoxication, illness, or even suspicious behavior. They're mentally cataloging who looks strong and might help in an evacuation, who looks nervous and might panic, and who's already had one too many airport margaritas. The tea and coffee service is basically a cover for their true function, being the guardians of 30,000 feet. And if you think about it, it makes sense. On average, a flight attendant only spends a fraction of the flight actually serving food and drinks. But when something goes wrong, whether it's sudden turbulence, smoke in the cabin, or a passenger medical emergency, they spring into action. One former attendant on Reddit's Ask Reddit explained it bluntly. We're not here to serve you. We're here to save you. Secret 2. What you don't know about your seat and cabin. You probably think your airplane seat is just uncomfortable. But there's more going on than meets the eye. First, let's talk about seat reclining. Flight attendants often won't tell you this, but many actually despise the recline wars. Technically, yes, you're allowed to recline, but that half-inch of space comes at the expense of the person behind you, and sometimes it triggers arguments that attendants then have to break up. Another secret, cabin air quality. Many passengers believe airplanes pump in fresh oxygen. The reality? About half the air is recirculated through HEPA filters, and half is fresh bleed air from the engines. Boeing 2022. It's safe, yes, but it's also incredibly dry, with humidity often under 20%. That's why your skin feels parched and your throat dry after a long flight. Turbulence is another misunderstood part of the flying experience. Attendants know the truth. Turbulence almost never brings down planes. Pilots and flight attendants both confirm that turbulence feels worse than it is, but it's also the leading cause of passenger injuries because people don't wear their seatbelts, FAA 2021. And let's not forget cleanliness. While airlines do a quick turnaround cleaning, attendants often know exactly which spots are the dirtiest. Hint, it's not the lavatory. Studies have shown that the tray table harbors far more bacteria than the toilet flush button, Travel Math 2018. Attendants know this, but they won't always say it out loud. They don't want to alarm passengers. Secret 3. Airline food and water truths. If you've ever sipped airplane coffee and thought, this tastes weird, you're not imagining things. Flight attendants often avoid drinking airplane coffee or tea, and many won't tell you why. The water tanks used on airplanes are rarely cleaned thoroughly. In fact, a study by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA 2019, found that some aircraft water tested positive for harmful bacteria. Airlines are required to flush and disinfect tanks, but the frequency isn't exactly confidence-inspiring. That's why many attendants bring their own bottled water or only drink sealed beverages on board. Then there's the food. Airline meals are not cooked fresh on the plane. They're prepared in industrial catering kitchens, chilled and then reheated mid-flight. Because of the dry air and pressurized cabin, your taste buds don't work the same way they do on the ground. Lufthansa's research department found that our perception of saltiness and sweetness drops by as much as 30% when flying. Lufthansa 2010. That's why airline food is often loaded with extra salt and seasoning. It's the only way you can taste it. Attendants also know which meals are safest. For example, many avoid fish dishes due to smell and reheating issues. They also know how tightly controlled alcohol is. That one free mini bottle might feel generous, but attendants are trained to watch passengers closely for intoxication because alcohol hits harder at altitude. Secret 4. Coded language and passenger nicknames. You may think the cabin crew is just whispering politely at the back of the plane, but often they're speaking in code. Attendants use discrete terms and nicknames for different types of passengers. For instance, some crews use the word Philip, short for passenger I'd like to punch, for particularly rude travelers. Others jokingly call attractive passengers Bob, best on board. There are also more serious codes. For example, the number 7500 is used for hijacking and aviation communication. If you ever hear a suspicious announcement about a 7500 situation, that's not a good sign. Flight attendants also have coded ways of asking for help without alerting passengers. For example, some airlines use phrases like blue juice spill in row 22 to quietly indicate a disruptive passenger situation without alarming the rest of the cabin. Insider forums like cabincrew.com are full of examples of this hidden language, and many attendants confirm they use it daily. It's a way to communicate sensitive information without sparking panic, or without making that rude passenger realize they're the subject of discussion. Secret 5. Turbulence, emergencies, and chaos. Flight attendants deal with emergencies far more often than passengers realize. While major events are rare, turbulence-related injuries, medical incidents, and even fires happen regularly. One shocking fact. A study by the FAA reported that about 58 passengers per year are injured by turbulence alone. And those are only the reported cases. Attendants are constantly urging passengers to keep seatbelts fastened, but many ignore the advice until they hit a bump. Medical emergencies are also common. A study in the New England Journal of Medicine found that 1 in every 604 flights has a medical emergency, ranging from fainting to cardiac arrest. Flight attendants are trained to use defibrillators and coordinate with ground doctors through radio. And then there are unruly passengers. Since 2020, reports of disruptive behavior have skyrocketed, with the FAA recording nearly 6,000 incidents in 2021 alone. Attendants are trained in de-escalation, but they've also been assaulted, yelled at, and even bitten. This is why many attendants quietly brace themselves whenever alcohol is served. Secret 6. The crew's secret world. Ever wondered where flight attendants go when they disappear? Many long-haul planes are equipped with hidden crew rest areas, tiny bunk beds tucked above the passenger cabin or near the tail. They're cramped, but it's where attendants nap during long flights. Passengers almost never see them. The layover life is another mystery. Attendants often joke that layovers are equal parts exhaustion and exploration. While the public imagines glamorous nights in Paris, the reality is often catching up on sleep in an airport hotel. However, crews do form tight bonds, and some share stories of wild adventures on longer layovers. Fatigue is a huge issue. According to the Association of Flight Attendants, attendants often work 12 16-hour days, crossing time zones and running on little rest. That's why they're fiercely protective of rest breaks and crew duty limits. Secret 7. Hidden rules of upgrades and freebies. Passengers love to dream about free upgrades, but attendants know the reality. They almost never happen. Upgrades are strictly controlled by gate agents, not crew. However, attendants do sometimes have discretion to offer perks. Polite passengers who treat crew with respect are more likely to be offered small courtesies, like extra snacks or a free drink. Attendants confirm in forums like Quora and Reddit that rudeness kills any chance of a perk. In fact, kindness and patience are often rewarded in subtle ways. One attendant revealed that they sometimes use service recovery gestures when something goes wrong, like offering complimentary drinks to a passenger affected by a delay. But the golden rule? Always be nice to your flight attendant. Secret 8. The illusion of control. Finally, one of the biggest secrets. Much of what passengers think is routine is actually carefully designed psychology. Why do they dim the lights during takeoff and landing? It's not to help you sleep. It's so your eyes adjust to darkness in case of an emergency evacuation. Why must tray tables be up? So they don't block your exit if you need to evacuate. Why must laptops be stowed? Because they turn into projectiles in turbulence. Even the lavatory door has secrets. Most airplane lavatories can be unlocked from the outside by sliding a hidden latch under the occupied sign. This allows crew to access the bathroom in case of medical emergencies or if someone is breaking rules. Everything you experience on board is meticulously calculated, and flight attendants are trained to enforce it, not because they're being difficult, but because lives might depend on it. So the next time you step onto a plane, remember, those smiling flight attendants are not just there to serve you a soda. They're firefighters, medics, safety officers, psychologists, and sometimes referees. They know things about your seat, your meal, and even your bathroom that you probably don't want to think too hard about. But the more you know, the smoother and safer your journey becomes. So buckle up, keep that tray table stowed, and maybe, just maybe, give your flight attendant a smile the next time they walk by. Because now you know the secrets of the sky are more fascinating than you ever imagined.